Streaming audio test 1 2. Streaming audio test 1 2.
Sorry about that. You got to teach me every time. I'm Mike McGowan, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors, and I'd like to welcome you all to the committee meetings this morning, July 7th, 2021. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website after the meeting's conclusion. I would like to announce that for all attendees at today's meeting who are not fully vaccinated, the district is continuing to follow the CDC guidelines for choosing safer activities by requiring masks or 6-foot social distancing. Thank you for your cooperation in this regard. Now I'd like to invite our Vice President of Safety, Security, and Business Continuity, Shane Hunter, to provide a briefing regarding protocol for those individuals in attendance at the board meeting today in the event of emergency. Shane?
Good morning. Shane Hunter, Vice President of Safety and Security. We are located in the boardroom, and the normal entry and exit paths are through the rear of the room where we've all entered this morning. If we needed to leave this room for any reason, there's also a second exit right here. Outside that door in the main hallway, you'll find the first aid kit, the fire extinguisher, and the closest AED. With the closest AED in mind, can I have a show of hands of who's CPR trained in the room? Thank you very much. In case of a medical emergency, 911 will be notified by the security desk. We'll then escort emergency personnel into this room. If we need to seek shelter for any reason for severe weather, this hallway through this door is the severe weather shelter for this building. And if we needed to evacuate this building for any reason, we'll go through this same door, take 2 immediate lefts, and reconvene in the parking garage for accountability. That concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you, Shane. Roll call, please.
Bagley?
Here.
Cook?
Here.
Friend? Frost?
Here.
McGowan?
Here.
Howard?
Here.
Kavanaugh?
Here.
Mary, I think Dave is actually on an airplane trying to get home from Florida. So with the storm, so he was trying to get here but couldn't quite make it. I'd like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available in the back of the boardroom, and a copy is also available in the nearby conference room set aside for members of the public who may attend. Okay, construction and operations. Mr. O'Brien, please.
Good morning. Corey O'Brien, Vice President of Engineering and Construction and Interim Chief Operations Officer. If I seem at all out of sorts this morning, please understand that I started my day with my toothbrush flying out of my hand and into my dog's water dish. So it can only go uphill from there, right? Behind tab 5 this morning is our capital expenditures letter. We have 10 projects on the letter this month, a larger letter, but I'm only going to speak about 3 of the projects, and I'm going to spend most of my time on 2 in particular. If you'll turn to page 2, the 2 projects that are related are item number 2 under system improvements and item number 1 under buildings, plants, and equipment. These are both associated with the West Dodge Pump Station project. I'm going to pull up a slide deck here, or Jay is going to pull it up, and we'll have some slides. I want to talk to both. I'm going to speak about these 2 projects together, so the mains and the pump station. Come on. Wait, I've got to wait till it catches up. There we go. All right, it's not advancing. Jay, can you advance to the next slide for me? There we go. Okay, we'll start with this map. So location. The station's location is 156 on West Dodge. It's represented by the red box on this map. I'm going to talk about the mains first, though. The red lines leading to and from the station are the transmission mains that are covered by the CNA under item 2 of system improvements. It's about $6.5 million worth of water main installation. The mains leading up to the station, coming from the east up to the station, are 30-inch, and the main crossing Dodge is 30-inch. The water main on the north side of Dodge and up 156th Street is a 24-inch main. And I would like to mention that, as we'll talk here in a little bit, we spend a lot of time and a lot of years planning for these types of investments. So the mains that are shown there, they're connecting to existing mains in our system. Those existing mains have been sized to accept this new pump station. So we've been laying the groundwork for this station for a number of years. The site itself in the red box, that is property that we have already purchased. That was done in 2019 in anticipation of this project. Lifegate Church, we worked with them to purchase about 1.6 acres of property on the east end of their parking lot. So to kind of give you an idea, right to the east of our proposed pump station are the Wycliffe apartments, to give you some idea where we're at. As far as mains, we're putting in about 9/10, just short of a mile of mains as shown on that diagram. And okay, I want to advance. I want to talk a little bit about timing and why we want to do this now. This map here, it shows our 3 major pressure zones in our water distribution system. Zone 1 in the light blue on the east end of the city. The magenta in the middle, the bulk of it, is Zone 2. And then Zone 3 is in the northwestern part of our distribution system. West Dodge Pump Station is going to affect Zone 3. That's why we're putting it in. So I'm gonna zoom into Zone 3. The blue is what we're talking about. That is pressure Zone 3. We have currently 4 stations that pump into Zone 3. That being Skyline Pump Station, Platte West Water Treatment Plant, Maple Road Pump Station, and the State Street Pump Station. And they're kind of in the middle, you'll see the proposed West Dodge Pump Station. So we have, I'm gonna advance here. You can see that Zone 3, Maple Road went in 92, Skyline went in 93, State Street in 05, and Platte West in 08. So it's been 13 years since we've added infrastructure to Zone 3. And there's been a lot of growth in Northwest Omaha in that time period. And so we have been planning for this for a number of years, like I talked about. We actually started thinking about this after the drought of 2012 and evaluating options and different sites. The issues that we're seeing are peak hour pumpages and pressures are, the pressures are continuing to decline as they have over past years. We are running more of our equipment. We essentially, at peak hours in the summertime right now, we essentially have very little redundancy left in our stations. If a unit were to fail, there, in a particular plant, there may not be a unit to back it up because we're running all of our units. So we try to anticipate when the right time is. We spend a lot of time trying to time these right. We don't get credit for putting them in too early, so we don't want to do that, and we don't want to put them in too late because that means that our system is operating at pressures that are not what we want. So we work hard to time these. We're currently seeing our peak hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the 6 to 7 a.m. time period, driven largely by lawn irrigation, and so we are aware of that and continue to work towards being able to plan for this next infusion of pumping capacity into Zone 3. The timing is for when this station will be online is the spring of, I don't know if I have that on this next slide. Jay, can you advance one more for me? It's not advancing for me. Okay, no. So spring of 2023 is when the station will be online. So we have to go through the rest of this summer and next summer without the station, but then 23 we'll have it online. I want to talk just briefly about the appearance. So this is the State Street Pump Station at 142nd and State Street. We built that in 05. It was primarily rural in setting and still largely is, but we knew at some point the community was going to surround it, and so we designed it to look good for decades into the future. And it is a good design. It's kind of a traditional design, but we think it's one that'll stand the test of time and still looks good, even though it's 16 years old. And in planning for the West Dodge pump station, this is a rendering of what the West Dodge pump station will look like. You can see it's very similar to what State Street looks like. We think it will fit in very well with the existing community around it. We worked with Lifegate Church because it will be very visible to them from their facility. And so we think it's a good design. We looked at a number of different concepts and had a good group of people evaluating, and this is what we came up with. The pump station itself will contain 4 pumps, 4 million gallons each. And like I spoke earlier, it is designed to run 3 of the 4 at a given time, with 1 as a spare. 2 of the pumps will have variable frequency drives on them to give us greater flexibility in pumping.
Corey, did you say 4 pumps, 1 million gallons each, or 4 pumps with 4 million gallons each?
4 pumps, each of them being 4 million gallons a day. Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to speak just a little bit to cost on the project. So the 2 CNAs that we are bringing this morning, they total about $11.6 million. That compares to our budget for those 2 projects of $13.3 million. So we're about $1.6 million under our budget with what we're bringing to you this morning for approval. One thing I do want to speak to, though, is you'll notice on John Zeller's bids letter that the estimate for the mains and the estimate for the station were both significantly off. On the transmission mains, our bid was significant, or our estimate was significantly lower than the bids we received. On the pump station, it was the opposite. Our estimate was higher than the pump station bids. And I guess we always like to be close on our estimates, but we're finding it extremely challenging with the economic situation the way it is right now, with supply chain issues and labor issues. Things are very volatile, both pricing-wise and delivery-wise. And so we've talked a lot about why our estimates weren't closer. We wish they would have been closer, but we're going to step back and we're looking at the bids that we received. We feel they are good bids. We got multiple bids on both projects. On the pump station, we got 4 bids. They were well grouped, telling us that it's a solid design. And overall, like I said, we're still $1.6 million under our budget for these projects. So with that, I'll entertain any additional questions that you might have before I move on to my last project. Tim.
Corey, that main on the map that runs under Dodge Street, is that in existence now or is that proposed?
The mains in red are proposed. They will go, our plan is to start installing them this fall.
How are you going to do that? Are you going to have to close Dodge Street?
No, they'll bore underneath Dodge Street.
Without affecting any of the structure and the support?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
good.
It's probably easier for me to explain why our estimates were low on the mains part of this project. I think we can all, if you've all driven down Dodge, you know how established that corridor is. It's very, very busy. It's very congested. There's probably tons of utilities that we try to find out all the utilities ahead of time, but until you dig, that's when the contractor truly finds where things are underground. And he's got to do a lot of moving of dirt from north to south on Dodge. So it's a complicated main extension. And so it carries with it a significant price tag. But no, we'll begin installing those later this year.
Do you have any idea right offhand how old that main is that goes under Dodge?
So the one
that crosses Dodge Street underneath.
that one does not exist yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. You said you got a directional board.
We're going to directional bore that. That's correct.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Corey, on going down 156th, will that affect the traffic in 156th, or will that be backed up? Because it's been under construction. It's just finished, you know, the expansion. Or will we be tearing up some 156th?
No, I can't tell you the exact line of that, Mike, but given that we've been planning for it for a long time, you know, our goal is to not impact infrastructure any more than we have to. And, you know, so it is challenging to find places to lay it when it's as established as it is, but our goal is to stay out of new infrastructure, new paving, that type of stuff. Yeah.
Corey, how many pumping stations are there district-wide?
Oh, good question. I should know that off the top of my head.
Well,
I don't think they're all on this one.
And related to that, in zones 1 and 2, have you observed, or has anybody from the district observed similar pressure issues throughout? And do you anticipate any new construction of pumping stations in the next 5 to 10 years in other areas of the district?
That's a good question. Thank you, Director Begley. I didn't mention it, but we currently do have two more reservoirs and pump stations on the horizon. One being in Zone 3, and the other would be in Zone 2, southwest. The purchase of the property is something we put on our budget, 5-year budget plan already, and so yes, those are two that we're planning for at this point. But I mean, we're seeing the pressures mostly affected in Zone 3 at this time.
Thanks, Corey.
You bet. Any other questions?
I have an engineering education question.
Okay.
Give me a worst-case scenario if we were not to install this as the population grows in northwest Omaha. Is there a geyser or something dramatic?
No, I think, probably our most realistic worst or bad scenario would be, because we're running essentially all of our equipment that we can in Zone 3 during peak times. If we were to have a mechanical failure or say an electrical outage that would take a station down, they don't all have backup power. So I mean, we would find ourselves struggling to maintain the pressures that we'd like to serve our customers at those times. You bet.
Director Cook, that's a great question. Mark Doyle, President. This topic has probably gotten as much internal scrutiny and discussion as about anything in my 10 years being internal now. And I go back to April of 1993, 4 months after I came on the board, and we accepted the pre-design report from HDR to build the Platte West Water Treatment Facility. At that time, part of the charge from the board to management is to optimize our system. Up until that time, we were forced to bring water from the Florence Water Treatment Plant through a couple of large mains that we actually funded under our construction fund to build Platte West to move water to the western part of town. We also had Platte South. So now we completed this third leg of the stool and we're bringing water back this way. We asked that we optimize our pumping, and I think it took a little longer than it should have maybe to add this enhancement to Zone 3. Mm-hmm. It was hard for me to accept this. We want to be very transparent. When we talk about all our equipment running, we're talking about a little bit in the summer when we're in a drought. But as several of you know, and I know Mr. McGowan, we've talked about this, there are neighborhoods that experience low pressures. Their showers aren't running like they should, but it's pretty much only during drought conditions. So you're making a decision on something that is primarily for irrigation during a drought. Now for me, it is more than that, and I've been convinced Corey and his team and the entire group have done a good job. This is probably the time to get this pumping station online for more reasons than just a drought. We have redundancy issues that could occur even when we don't have a drought. But the next time we do one, we're going to rely on a hydraulic model that I'll talk about during the State of the District briefly to have more scientific evidence through pressures and things that we know are facts. This is a little bit of a feel here, and I'm agreeing with it now, but this didn't come easy. So you're asking a really good question. What's the worst case? We'd have to tell people to possibly help us out by adjusting their sprinklers to Tuesdays and Thursdays instead of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that's, that sounds easy. It's a little complicated, but I know our communications group, Stephanie and the team, we're preparing for that. We do have a conservation plan, and part of that is to encourage behaviors to reduce our peak loads. And I think the public's okay with this more today than they ever have been. Mm-hmm. So it's a great question, but I want to be very clear. We're approving something that I'm not, worst case, not sure, but I am on board with it or we wouldn't have made the recommendation. But I know Corey would tell you this has had a significant discussion.
Oh, yeah. And
it should,
absolutely,
right?
And then we should challenge ourselves on these types of projects. It's $11.5 million, and that represents a lot of potential mains we could replace also. So we have to evaluate where to spend that $11.5 million. Now, I am convinced, as are the engineers, that it is time to infuse this infrastructure into Zone 3. And we did. Mark mentioned the hydraulic model. It didn't exist when we started all the planning for this, but as it came online for us. Here recently, we have run scenarios through with the pump station involved in it, and it does support putting the station in there. We
It's
just didn't have it.
validating what we know.
Yeah, it is validating what we know. It didn't exist from the get-go on this one, but it is validating what we're recommending to you, so.
Mark, thanks for that context, and I was just going to add, is there any way to proactively encourage homeowners to use the Tuesday, Thursday cycle rather than react to a drought situation, to proactively communicate that to them?
Sure.
Just something to consider.
Sure, I
You're,
think so.
you're doing that right now.
True.
Rebecca, water the lawn tomorrow, please. Thank you.
Jim,
Yes, there
Stephanie,
is.
was there an insert this month
there
in our
is.
insert to try to water on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Seems like I read something in public.
I got a little ahead of myself. This is in our plan to communicate. It certainly is one of the steps that we take as we move through the different levels of our conservation plan. But we are talking about that internally and how we would do that, or why we would do that, and when we would do that. But certainly changing behavior it's not as hard as it used to be. Everybody, ask their kindergartners to tell the parents, and I'm telling you, I can't let the water run at home without.
But it seems like I read something just recently, I don't know if it was in the recent bill insert or something, that
We might have.
try to move towards Tuesday, Thursday, I don't know.
Did we? I don't know if we did. We might have. We'll check.
There's also some fire suppression issues attached to all this too for water pressure. Are we still well within our statutory requirements for providing
We are.
water pressure even
We
without
are.
this project?
Before I'll let Corey take that, I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Kavanaugh. Whether we like it or not, during a drought condition, our pressures drop, and this is another reason why this is needed, so we can keep pressures up. That would be a significant problem.
Right.
If a fire broke out, and Murphy's Law says that's when it
I
would.
mean,
When it's the driest.
Yeah.
When it's the driest,
It
that's
makes
when the
sense.
fires are going to happen.
Yeah.
right. And we're okay at this point, but we don't have a lot of slack in our rope as far as pumping capacity. And so with anticipated continued growth in Zone 3, this investment is needed. It's not an exact science on the exact month of the exact year that it should be installed, but we're pretty good at knowing when the time is right, and for this one, the time is right. Thank you for the questions. The only other project I wanted to briefly touch on was item number 5 under building plants and equipment. It's not a large expenditure. It's about $190,000, but it's significant to us because it's our facility. This is on the construction center located at the 63rd and Oak complex. As you are well aware, the building has suffered significant settling issues in recent years, year and a half, and there are some interior walls partition walls, concrete block walls that have cracked, settled, and become, quite frankly, a safety hazard. We have reinforced them. We don't have personnel working around them anymore, but the time is right to remove them. This contract will tear those walls down and just clear the space for when we want to start to make repairs to that facility. This doesn't make any repairs to the facility. It's purely a demolition contract to remove the walls that have been compromised. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Are there any questions on that?
Corey, I assume, as always, these costs will be segregated, so we have them accounted for separately, right?
That's correct. All the costs associated with this issue are being tracked separately. We have been in communication with our insurers, and we are expecting reimbursement for this work by our insurers.
That was my next question. It says it is expected that it'll be reimbursed.
Yeah, and
Has the insurers agreed to reimburse us, or are we still talking?
I might look to Mark Mendenhall to speak definitively about it, but certainly they've been aware of this whole discussion the whole time. So.
Good morning. Thank you for the question, Mark Mendenhall, General Counsel. Yeah, to answer your question, my expectation is yes, that the insurers will reimburse for the costs of this demolition. We've been working with them quite closely over the past 2 years.
But my question is, have they agreed to? You say, we expect them to, we've been working with them, but have we got an agreement? Have they said, we will reimburse you?
I wouldn't say it's that explicit, but it's my expectation. So the way that this has progressed is that we will complete work and then we will submit invoices. They will review those invoices. They may ask questions about certain line items on the invoices. And then either approve partial payment or approve full payment. So my expectation is full payment. They have reviewed the bids, correct? Correct. And so the biggest question that they have is, are we doing a bidding process? And if we're not selecting the low bid, why? We have provided all of the bids to the insurers for them to review. And again, after conversations that we have every other week with the insurance carriers and their representatives, my expectation is full payment will be received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? That's all I have for capital expenditures this morning.
Thank you, Corey. Ms. Hen will review the acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates letter. Good morning.
Good morning. Stephanie Hen, Director of Plant Engineering. I will be addressing the finals letter behind tab number 6 this morning. We had 8 finals that we're finaling this month. 1 plant project, 3 water main development projects, 1 water infrastructure project, and 3 projects all related with the completion of the headquarters facilities. I'd like to start with item A. This was a Hawkins construction project. This was the renovation of our low service building at our Florence water treatment plant. This is part of the ongoing CIP at Florence. This was a large $8 million project that focused on architectural, mechanical instrumentation, and process improvements, and focused on a lot of electrical upgrades to that facility. Of this $8 million project, the cost came in only 0.5% above the expected costs, which is really, really exciting when that happens. Good job to that team. I'd also like to talk about item B. This is a Q3 contracting water infrastructure project. This was part of our water infrastructure program of 2020. This is approximately a $900,000 project with a net increase of only $15,000 overall. This included a change order number 1 for about $23,000, primarily for additional pipe depth, groundwater issues, and repairing an existing water main. So approval of this final also approves that change order. Item E was a water development project constructed by Cedar Construction. Approximately a $370,000 project. There's a small change order associated with this of $3,500, primarily to relocate a portion of water main that was shallower than we expected. So approval of this final also approves that change order. The last item that I'd like to highlight is items F, G, and H as a group. These 3 contracts were all associated with the headquarters building renovations. These 3 contracts, 1 was for the furniture supplier, All Makes, architectural services with Holland Basham Architects, construction work for all the renovations with MCL Construction. We are very excited to have the headquarters building now substantially complete, and we're getting to enjoy these facilities that we're now in. As you may recall, the board approved overall costs for this project of just under $15 million. The final costs are coming in just over $14 million, so the overall spend is about 6% under the overall approved costs. By approving these finals, this also approves a small deduct change order on the construction contract with MCL. And with that, I would be glad to go into any more detail or answer any questions you might have.
Hey, Steph, just Corey alluded to this a few minutes ago. With regard to the issue in supply chains, some of these contracts were awarded prior to the pandemic. Should the board anticipate the frequency of change orders increasing as we go through on a monthly basis through the rest of 2021?
That is a great question. This supply chain thing is becoming a big deal. And like on some of our projects, we're hearing from the suppliers and the contractors, not so much the contractors, but the suppliers, the vendors, that they're using their force majeure. And I'm certainly not an attorney. I can certainly talk with Mr. Mendenhall. But basically what that means is that they don't know when they're going to be able to supply us with some of those materials, kind of when it comes to pipe and fittings and some things like that. So kind of what it's showing up to be is they're saying, here, we will get you your supplies when we can, and the prices may change. We as the supplier cannot guarantee that here's what the price is going to be, which we typically get that. You know, when a contractor bids a project, here's what they bid it at, the vendor backs that up. It's really not happening so much here in the last few months now that we're coming out of the pandemic. And so it's certainly a concern. We're kind of trying to roll with it and see how it comes out, but that is a very definite possibility.
Thanks, Steph. Appreciate that.
You bet. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mr. Zellers will review bids on materials and contracts, please. Good morning.
Good morning. John Zellers, Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 7. There are a few items that I would like to discuss this morning, and we'll start on page 2, where we received bids on several pieces of equipment. The first was for 4 vibratory plow trenchers with backhoe. These units will be used by our construction division for plowing in gas services in the summer and trenching them in during the winter. Historically, this seasonal operation utilized separate equipment. Combining plowing and trenching operations under one unit will increase equipment utilization and result in lower overall costs. The 4 plow trencher combination units will replace 8 single function units that have reached a point where they are no longer economical to maintain and have limited parts availability. The retired units will be sold at auction. Ditch Witch's bid is recommended for approval. The next item is for a mobile hydraulic percussive and auger drill rig. This piece of equipment will be used daily by our construction division to locate gas leaks and will replace a rig that has reached a point where it is no longer economical to maintain. The retired rig will be sold at auction. Simcoe Drilling is the only manufacturer of the specified rig and is recommended for approval. We're asking for approval of the bid from Kubota of Omaha for 5 rough terrain vehicles. One of these vehicles will be used at each of the water plants, the LNG facility, and the 63rd Street facility for snow removal and ground maintenance. That is currently being performed using pickups or larger vehicles. This will allow for some of these vehicles to be reassigned for other uses within the district. Kubota is the only manufacturer of this type of vehicle that can utilize all the needed attachments for the functions that we need. Kubota of Omaha's bid represents a 22% discount from list and is recommended for approval. The last 2 items may be found at the top of page 3. We accepted bids for 2 roofing projects that include the replacement of 3 roofs at the 117th propane air plant and 2 roofs at the Florence water treatment plant. These roof replacements were identified through a district-wide building evaluation program that was completed in the spring of 2020. The roofs range in age from 28 years to 36 years and are in poor condition. The expected life of the new roof is 35 years. The low bid for each project is higher than the engineer's estimate, which is believed to due to price increasing and labor shortages, basically what we've been talking about this morning with the supply chain. The low bid for each project is recommended for approval. And that's all I have for you this morning, but we'd be happy to answer any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien, proposed main extensions, please.
Good morning again. Corey O'Brien, Vice President, Engineering and Construction and Interim Chief Operations Officer. Under tab 8, or behind tab 8, is our main extensions letter for this month. We have 9 projects in total, 3 water main extensions and 6 gas main extensions. The impact on the water side, the 3 projects are impacting 304 single residence lots, 1 multi-residence lot, and 18 commercial lots. On the gas side, they're all single residence, but we're impacting 1,025 lots, so that's a significant number. If you look down to the map, you will see that, is the map up? I don't see the map. In your book anyway, the map shows that these 9 projects are distributed amongst 4 of our subdivisions this month. So I don't have a lot to say about them. They are straightforward projects, both gas and water. I would comment that on the water main extensions, all 3 of them, the developers have requested district gas for all 3 of those projects, so that's good. On the gas side, item 1 and item 5 gas main extensions. Management is recommending that we oversize some of our 2-inch main up to 4-inch main for system enhancement. So on item 1, that comes at a cost of about $50,000 to the district because we're upsizing 3,600 feet. On item 5, it's about $21,000. We're upsizing 1,450 feet. That's all I have to comment on the main extensions. Are there any questions I can answer? Thank you. Oh, and Director Bagley, there are 16 pump stations in zones 2 and 3.
Corey, thank you. Appreciate that. Good luck with your toothbrush.
Bonnie Savine, employee wage or salary increases. Good morning.
Good morning. Bonnie Savine, Vice President, Human Resources. We'll start with a recap of employee counts for 2020 and 2021. On June 30th of 20, there were 814 regular full-time employees, 3 regular part-time, for a total of 817. To end this June, we had 811 regular full-time employees and 4 regular part-time, so that gave us 815 for the end of this June. There were also 4 temporary part-time and 1 temporary full-time, and we do have 18 summer employees this month, so those folks are at work at this time. A review of jobs actively in various stages of the job selection process. We have 3 jobs that have requisitions routing for approvals. We have 3 jobs that are currently posted. There are 4 jobs that we expect to post this week, perhaps today as well as Friday. We have 14 jobs that remain in the application review or interview stages, so those are continuing to get manager review. And then we have 6 jobs that have selected candidates that are going through the hiring process right now. And on to tab 9. You'll find the wage and or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases for 15 employees this month. 12 employees are being promoted through the posting process into OAC jobs. We have 3 employees that are being promoted into SPA jobs. And then we did also have 1 new hire ratification at the end of that letter. Are there any questions on tab 9? Okay. And now on to tab 10. Tab 10 is the recommendation for the role of Senior Vice President, Chief Operations Officer. It's recommended that the Board of Directors approve the selection of Gina Langle as Senior Vice President, Chief Operations Officer. Ms. Langle holds a master's degree from the University of Nebraska, Omaha in Business Administration, and she also holds a bachelor degree in Mechanical Engineering. She's also a registered professional engineer, and she has a combined total of 30 years experience in all of our local public utilities, natural gas, water, and electric. The Human Resources team conducted a thorough recruitment and job placement process. We had 29 candidates, 28 that stayed with us through the process. 1 withdrew early. After several interviews, our senior management team and myself made a selection, and we did meet with the Personnel Committee. And we're bringing that recommendation to you today. So based on Ms. Langle's credentials, education, and proven work experience, both at M.U.D. and elsewhere, she is being recommended to be hired into the position of Senior Vice President, Chief Operations Officer. Are there any questions this morning?
She's here.
Yes, she is.
Maybe she could just stand up, Gina, and
Absolutely.
say hi. We'll welcome you to M.U.D.
Good morning. I am ecstatic to be coming back to the M.U.D. family. I was here 31 years ago for 15 years. My husband and I often joke, I was born and raised at M.U.D. And then I went over to OPPD, and I worked there for the last 16 years in various positions. I can't tell you how excited I am to be back into an area where I can do where I was born and I was raised with it. Director McGowan, it's a pleasure to meet you. Director Kavanaugh, I've seen you before. It's nice to see you. Director Howard, it's a pleasure to meet you. Director Frost, I remember you too. It's good to see you. Director Cook, it's a pleasure to meet you. And Director Bagley, know your brother, pleasure to meet you.
Don't hold that against me, please.
On that. So I really look forward to the responsibilities that come with this position, which I do not take lightly, I can tell you that. Do you have any questions for me today?
I just want to welcome you, and as Bonnie mentioned, Personnel Committee met last week, and Bonnie and Mr. Doyle and Mr. Mendenhall spoke very highly of you, and we're very excited to have you on board. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And everybody remembers Jack. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. And for Ms. Howard, one little update. We do have 2 on-site COVID vaccination clinics that we are holding next week. Thursday afternoon at the Operations Center from 2 to 4, Friday at the Construction Center from 7 to 9, and they are open to employees and their family members. So
that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And then I assume that, knowing you, I know it's taken care of already, but the clinic or the health fair,
yes,
excuse me, in October will also offer the vaccinations?
It will. It will
Good.
have that
Thank
as
you.
well as our shingles, pneumonia, and flu, and it will be held at the end of October as it had been in years past. So we'll have more information on that in the next couple of months.
Good. And could you give me those dates again, just so I have them?
Sure. July 15th from 2 to 4, and then July 16th from 7 to 9 a.m.
July 15th and 16th?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Bonnie, roughly what percent of our employees are vaccinated? Do we know?
Yes, we're fully vaccinated. We are at 64%. Yes.
What group is coming in to provide the vaccinations?
Kohl's Pharmacy.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just really quickly to add to what Gwen said, and Mark, go ahead. In the paper yesterday, I think it said Douglas County had the highest spike in COVID in the country, or the state of Nebraska. I can't remember which, but
The state of Nebraska was the highest.
State of Nebraska, but with 64% of our employees vaccinated, I would just strongly, again, encourage all of our employees to get vaccinated for yourselves, for your coworkers, and your families. Thanks.
Well, and I appreciate that the site is going to offer vaccinations for families as well. That's really inclusive, and the evening hours hopefully will work for people to bring their family members in.
Well, thank you for that encouragement, all the directors. I will say it's nice to be standing up here and not be messing with my mask. When I look back at last year's, I thought, wow, did I really touch my face that much? And they're supposed to stop you from doing that. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the boardroom. It's nice to see everyone, to feel safe in this environment. It's been a long year. Actually, it's been more than a year. So good morning. I'm Mark Doyle. I'm president of the Metropolitan Utilities District. As always, I want to reemphasize that it's an honor to serve with you and lead this public utility that provides life-essential natural gas and water services to the communities we serve. It's really hard to believe that I've completed 3 years, and I'm now in my 4th year in this role that you've given me the responsibility to carry out. It's been an interesting, challenging time, but also gratifying to see how our organization can work through adversity, and I mean adversity like we've never seen. I think all said and done, we've become stronger and more resilient, not just as an organization of employees, but also as a group that works for you, the representative of our customer owners. I'm going to thank you a few times for all your support, your understanding, and the time you spend at this role, and especially today because, I got a pretty big stack of papers here, but the good news is the font's really big, so I don't have to keep pushing my glasses up off my nose. Thank you for that, whoever did that. I can't say enough about our employees and their dedication through the challenges associated with the pandemic. I'd also have to say that during these times, we've had challenges with our facilities that you heard about earlier during the CNA presentation. They've adapted, they've never wavered, and they continue to deliver on our mission to provide safe, reliable, and cost-effective natural gas and water service to our communities. I'm proud of the entire district team, from our frontline employees through management and also the board of directors. We stayed focused on our 4 foundational pillars that I'll talk about today: safety, reliability, fiscal responsibility, and organizational excellence. These values guide our decision-making and our daily operations, always with the goal to maintain the confidence of our customer owners. We need a confident board. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree. And even that earlier discussion on the pump station, that just delights me, because we want to be totally transparent with the things we're doing, why we're doing them. But the confidence of you and the customers that you represent is paramount. We really don't sell anything but confidence. When it comes time to ask for more of their money, we want to have a good reason to do it, and we want them to maybe not throw it at us, but at least understand why we're doing that. Today, I'll share with you the state of the district. This will be the 3rd one that I've done. The one as I was coming in as president was done by my predecessor. It's the current state of M.U.D, but it's a little bit on the utility industry in general. I'm fortunate to work with an engaged and focused senior leadership team, and I'd like to introduce them now. Senior Vice President and General Counsel Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President and Chief Operations Officer Joe Shafford. I'm pretty sure he's on the virtual panel. Senior Vice President of Safety, Security, and Field Operations Steve Osdemore, and Interim Senior Vice President and Chief Operations Officer Corey O'Brien. I'd also like to acknowledge the Vice Presidents in the room with us today. It's under their leadership, actually, that we've been able to persevere through these times. I'd also like to acknowledge the IBE Local 1521 partnership we have. Terry and Tom are in the room, or I should say Ms. Kroll and Tom Todd are in the room. They're always listening. Sometimes, well, I'm not going to say it this year. It's our little inside joke? Yeah. All right. And again, I'd like to recognize the 800-plus team of dedicated employees who are living out our mission every day, 24/7, to serve our customer owners. So I think I'm going to try to follow along with the slides. I'm not sure who's running them, but I think it's the Wizard of Oz. So the pandemic did remain on the forefront in 2020 and into 2021. We continued to follow our incident management protocols, which is our pandemic preparedness plan, and we've adapted our responses as necessary. And there were a lot of responses that we adapted, from mask policies to pandemic leave and everything in between. And of course, our discussions and encouragement of the vaccination process. Our team remains focused on the safety of our employees, the safety of the public, and the integrity of our facilities in order to meet our mission. I'm extremely proud of the resiliency shown, along with our ability to collaborate with local, state, and federal agencies amid a rapidly changing public health landscape. Despite the pandemic, we continued to meet 100% of the demand for the life essential services that we provide without interruption. There's a lot to be said for that, and it's never taken for granted. We maintain full operations at our water treatment facilities and also our gas production facilities. It was a little over a year ago, or maybe exactly a year ago, that we were wondering if it was the right decision to isolate our water plants. Several of the utilities in the country did that, and we were fast followers for that. Looking back, I think it was the right thing to do. We hats off to the employees and managers that worked through that. It wasn't easy, but it did show that we were in the mindset that we needed to be, and then we backed away from that. So that's another example of adapting our policies and procedures. So I want to sincerely thank our employees for showing just how important it is to continue delivering on our mission, and especially safe tap water. The pandemic did change the way we work, but many of our employees began working from home on a temporary basis, and many of them still are. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. This option allowed the district to reduce the risk of exposure amongst our workforce while maintaining safe and reliable service to our customers. When we did that, we had to quickly move hundreds of people to a work-from-home scenario and all the technology involved to do that. And of course, there was no vaccine at that time. So you have to put yourself back in that mindset. It seems like this has been going on for a long time when you think of all the different challenging thought processes and hurdles that we went through. Our employees in the field work through challenging conditions, wearing special personal protective equipment. It's not easy to work under the tough conditions that they do, let alone requiring them to wear masks. That wasn't easy. We worked through it, but it's pretty easy for me to sit back and think about it and worry about it and let the frontline employees that are subjected to that out in the field know that we do care and we don't take it for granted that what the challenge it is to, for example, work in a ditch, in a main break, sharing tools, and wearing masks. So we never take that for granted, and we want to thank them for keeping each other and their families and the community safe by following those protocols. As far as reentry, for those in the office, we've taken a conservative phased-in approach with our reentry plan. As of July 1st, we transitioned from phase 1 to phase 2, which allows up to 50% occupancy of our facilities, and that's happening here at this facility as well as our other ones. We continually follow the CDC recommendations and guidelines as well as state and local benchmarks, and we hope the trends continue to improve and we can return to phase 3 or 100% occupancy by the end of this year. We're grateful to the many partners and agencies we've worked with throughout the pandemic. And we also are grateful to partners that we've consulted with throughout this, which would include UNMC and the CDC, of course, that I mentioned earlier. So we haven't lost sight of the safety and well-being of our customers either. The district was responsive to the financial hardships faced by many of our customers due to this pandemic. Last year, we temporarily suspended service disconnections and late payment charges, as well as help customers tap into more than $2.1 million in utility assistance funds through the CARES Act and from our own home fund. Early 2021, an additional $1 million in aid was secured from Douglas County, all of which had been awarded by the end of May of this year. In total, $3.1 million in utility assistance aid was granted to over 8,200 households. We should all be very proud of that. We thank our partners at Douglas County and the state of Nebraska for their assistance and commitment to helping us support our customers. I'm going to talk a little bit about safety first culture and emergency response now. So employee and supervisor emphasis on a safety first culture continued in earnest, and I'm happy to report that our total recordable incidence rate was the lowest of all time, marking the least number of days away from work, work restrictions, or transferred. So it's the best ever recorded. And hats off to the direction we get from the safety and security team, but hats off especially to the employees day in and day out that are working that safety first culture. We can't do it without them. They are our safety culture. Our focus on district emergency response continued to show improvement. We decreased the average response time to 19.3 minutes last year in 2020. That's down over 6 minutes from the response time in 2015. Now, to a lot of people, that doesn't seem like a lot. That is a tremendous improvement, and I'm quite certain puts us in the top quartile for emergency response. We get thousands and thousands of emergency response calls. Some of them you happen to be right there, others you're away. But to clock an average of 19.3 minutes is exceptional. And thanks again to the employees for making that happen. We have a safer public because of it. I'm going to shift a little bit to reliability. So I talk about this a lot, and you would think it's the most important thing on my mind. Well, it's not, but it's one of the most pressing things on my mind. The reliability of our gas and water systems continues to be a top priority, and it will for the foreseeable future. The district spent $46 million last year to improve our gas and water main infrastructure. We're pleased to report that the team made significant progress on not just infrastructure replacement, but facility upgrades as well, because that's infrastructure. We achieved our infrastructure replacement goals for both gas and water in 2020, and through a combined team effort, we replaced over 40 miles of gas mains and over 13 miles of aging and not so good water mains. Since 2008, when we started the IR program, we've replaced approximately 365 total miles of low-pressure cast iron gas mains and 103 miles of water mains. By the end of 2027, we plan to replace the remaining 193 miles of low-pressure cast iron gas mains. And we have a long-term goal, and this is not going to be as easy, of replacing 25 miles of water mains per year by 2025. And I usually get the question, is that like by January or December? Let's just say by the end of 2025. It's a goal. It's a tough goal. But because of your willingness to allow us to get the funds to do it and the technologies and all the things in place to try to do it better, more effectively, and more surgically, so to speak, to make sure we're only replacing mains that need replacement, I think we're going to get there. 1% of our water main infrastructure would be about 30 miles, and that'll be the next goal. I don't want to put that out there yet. Let's try 25 first. We should be doing that every year till the end of time. It's if we find out that a water main's useful life is less than 100 years, we'll change that. But at this time, we need to make sure that we don't ever get into this position again. It's less expensive to build in the depreciation and have a program to replace them than it is to respond to emergencies constantly while you're trying to replace them. So we have a team that continually reviews these plans and goals to ensure that we hit these deadlines. And in the past 13 years, we've made great progress on the gas side. When the low-pressure cast iron gas mains are all replaced, and those are not good. We wouldn't, we're replacing them with tried and true and longer lasting mains now. We have other things on the gas side that we need to take care of. We've got the high pressure system, we've got gas meters that we need to repair, and on and on and on. But again, we need a % of our infrastructure that should be taken care of every year. So those programs are being put in place. I'll talk a little bit about our natural gas production facilities and peak shaving. As you know, we completed a study of potential efficiencies and capacity improvements for our liquefied natural gas plant, and you approved a plan that, again, received a lot of internal scrutiny, and you advanced that $78 million project for us. We appreciate that support, and this will be handled through 2 bond issuances. Joe's listening in, and I'd have him explain it to you, but I don't want to extend this any more than we need to. I hope he's laughing. These upgrades will allow us to meet our increasing peak day gas demands and substantially improve the reliability of our liquefied natural gas plant for the foreseeable future. We're also keeping in mind that anything we do from here on out on the gas side, we need to make sure that we're thinking about the gas industry in general and the changes that the gas industry is seeing with things like hydrogen and renewable natural gas, and making sure that that infrastructure is useful in the future. I'll talk a little more about that in a little bit. Again, your support is appreciated, and the importance of these upgrades have never been more apparent than when we went through that polar vortex in February of this year. During that time, our customers used 50% more gas than normal, and we had 2 consecutive days of more send out than we've ever had of natural gas. So 2 days in a row set the record for the highest amount of natural gas sent out ever in the history of the utility. We met all of our customers' needs through pipeline purchases, which we're under contract for, and also our peak shaving facilities, which would be our LNG plant and our propane plants. Our employees worked long shifts to ensure reliable gas and water supplies during this extreme cold snap. That's just not taken for granted. It just doesn't seem enough to stand up here and say thank you for the work that went into this from management all the way down through the front line that made it happen, but that's all I got right now. Our energy storage assets, which would be the LNG plant and the propane air plants, supplemented supplies when gas prices increased, and this is just a great point. And really, our customers are in really good hands with this utility when it comes to this. The facilities delivered 40% of gas demand to our customers over a 6-day period. So 60% of the gas came from our pipeline contract, and we were able to augment that with 40% from our stored energy on site in form of propane, air, and LNG. And I've been around here a long time now, but it's never become more apparent how important those resources are than it was during that. Nothing like going through something like that to kind of open your eyes. So hats off to the entire group, and really that was... So gas prices during the week prior to that were around $4 a unit that we refer to as a decatherm. During that, they spiked 100 times to $400 a decatherm. So we didn't have to pay those higher costs. We did have, the average residential customer's bill for that extra gas that time was around $26, and about $17 of that was just because they were using more gas. So the other 9 was actually the result of the higher gas prices. So investing in the expansion of those capabilities is vital to our long-term natural gas strategies, and we thank you for that support. So as the energy industry and policymakers implement strategies to pursue a significantly lower carbon energy economy, natural gas utilities are always looking to provide more sustainable solutions. We remain committed to delivering natural gas cleanly and efficiently, even as the industry changes. Natural gas is a fossil fuel. It's CH4. It's 1 carbon atom and 4 hydrogen atoms. So it has an atom of carbon in it, and it's a fossil fuel. But it's also naturally occurring. It's not just something that's taken out of the ground and delivered to gas utilities. So I'm going to have to put my glasses on here. I made too many notes. So we remain committed to delivering natural gas cleanly and efficiently, as I said a minute ago. And along with improving the safety of our gas system, the low-pressure cast iron gas system, our infrastructure replacement program provides significant environmental benefits through leak reduction. Not only are leaks unsafe, they waste gas and they put a greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. From 2008 to 2020, by removing more than 360 miles of cast iron gas mains and replacing more than 41,000 gas services to homes, the district has removed approximately 408,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions. To give you some perspective on that number, this is equal to displacing emissions from 450 million pounds of coal burned, 46 million gallons of gasoline consumed, or 47,000 homes' energy use for an entire year. The district's efforts were highlighted in 2020 at the Global Methane Challenge, an international campaign to reduce methane emissions, and this highlighted the policies and technologies used to recover and use methane. We continue to lead the market in development of compressed natural gas for transportation. We've been experimenting with renewable natural gas, and renewable natural gas is from landfills, dairy farms, hog farms, sludge ponds, you name it. There's a lot of methane that's organically created. We've had a project with Douglas County whereby landfill gas has been moved to our LNG plant for the last 5 years. A portion of this landfill gas that we refer to as RNG, or renewable natural gas, has been assigned to our local CNG stations. So our fleet, a lot of our fleet that runs on RNG is, very environmentally sustainable. The landfill connection has delivered 2.2 million gasoline gallon equivalents since its inception over the last 5 years. Natural gas produced from landfills for transportation fuel, of course, reduces greenhouse gas emissions by about 88% compared to diesel vehicles. And as far as CNG goes, in 2020 alone, the district dispensed more than 2.1 million gallons of CNG across our service territory. This is the equivalent of 3,300 residential homes' annual gas usage, and it marks the highest amount of CNG ever delivered by the district, and it's just growing. We strengthened our relationship with Metro Transit as they continued to operate more than 20 CNG buses in their regular fleet, and they introduced 9 60-foot articulating CNG buses for the new orbit system that you see going up and down from east to west, Dodge Street and Farnham. FCC Environmental began operating their fleet of more than 70 CNG trucks as a part of the City of Omaha's new refuse contract. These trucks will utilize approximately 100,000 decatherms or 12,500 gallons of CNG annually, or the equivalent of 1,200 residential homes' annual gas usage. And we expect that trash fleet to grow as well. So our investment, promotion, and education of natural gas vehicles illustrates our continued dedication to helping improve air quality for our customers and our surrounding communities. And we want to thank you for your steadfast support for this. This goes back quite a ways, as I know Director Kavanaugh knows. We've talked about this a lot when I was on the board. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our project with OPPD, but I'd like to start by saying that the natural gas industry is certainly in transition, and I think the messaging has finally caught up to where it should be. We follow the American Gas Association very closely. Actually, natural gas has led the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in the country simply by helping electrics move to renewables and use natural gas as a backup in replacement of coal. The system is flexible, reliable, and versatile, and it enables this integration of renewable energy. So locally, we're working closely with OPPD as they strive to reduce their carbon footprint and use natural gas to help meet their goals. OPPD announced plans for 2 new natural gas-fueled generation facilities to support growth and ensure resiliency in the region. Adding a natural gas backup to the solar facilities is an important component that will improve reliability and quickly provide power when the sun isn't shining. This project also emphasizes the environmental benefits of natural gas toward reducing emissions and will have a positive long-term impact on our community. We're happy to work with OPPD. We applaud them as partners for recognizing that natural gas is a responsible backup. I'm going to stop and take a quick break and ask if you have any questions or you'd like to talk about anything at this point, so I'm not just reading for the entire 20 or 30 minutes. Would you like to do that, or should I keep going?
Do you want a break?
No, I just thought, I wrote a note here saying, you've been reading a long time, why don't you ask them if they'd like a break? That was last night.
One of the things that, as your cub reporter on duty, when there's a neighborhood break, when I send you pictures, and I have to say I do appreciate how responsive you are, and you must work 24/7 because I send them to you at night sometimes when there's a break. But there had been a mention of a detection system that could be applied to hydrants that would show where water breaks were. And I think that's really innovative, and maybe you want to touch on it.
Well, we're applying a lot of technologies and innovative approaches that we haven't done to this point. We do have several hydrants, I can't tell you exactly how many, that are outfitted where we've modified the cap of the hydrant to include a device that can hear, and if the sound waves change, you might have a break, and we can go dig it up and take a look, and oftentimes we find that that was a leak that would have contributed to a break. We've also started using other technologies for leak detection that aren't hydrant-based, that are a little different. So the challenge is, how big do you go? How do you support it appropriately? Because if you have information, you want to act on it. But I'm committed, and I know management is committed to proliferating leak detection in a big way. We've also got a couple other technologies, and I won't mention them when I get to them. I think we heard about the sea snake. Do you remember that? We talked about analyzing a main out near 102nd and F, where the city's going to replace the roads. That's a mechanical device that's, I don't know, about 4 feet long, that'll swim through that main after you block it off and take a look at the entire perimeter circumference and report back information. And we did that, and the information coming back has been stellar. We found out things about that main that doesn't just validate that we don't need to replace the whole main, which we would have done. We just would have said, hey, they're tearing up the road, we got to replace it. So we end up throwing away a lot of good main. But we also have scientific and engineering backup in the event that a main does break after pavement is applied, where we gave it our best, and it might have broke for another reason, but the information coming back from that was really spectacular. We also have another technology we're using on our large concrete mains that have reinforced cables in them that can rust or become brittle for different reasons. And when those break, we had one on the 4th of July a few years ago. You get a 48-inch main that breaks, it's just a problem. And we found a leak near 142nd and Harrison that we mentioned a couple meetings ago that when it was dug up, it was, yeah, that's exactly what the technology told us. We fixed it, put in a kit, replaced it. So I think what I really like is, like I got a phone call from one of the engineers on the Sea Snake last week, the excitement in the voice. It's like, whoa. So we need to provide these tools, and then I need to get out of the way because they'll prove themselves out. And I'm just so encouraged. So leak detection's a big deal. We probably haven't been as focused on that as other utilities. If you're in California, leak detection's everything. If you have mains running in California where there are water shortages and scarcity of water, the public will not tolerate that, and they shouldn't. So we're getting better on leak detection for a different reason. We're blessed with great sources of water at the confluence of the Platte and the Missouri. But we need to be responsible. We don't want mains to break. It's a large line item. We want to work on mains in a managed way, not an emergency way. We'll probably never get away from it, but we've made great progress. Thank you for those pictures, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm getting better and better.
I felt like I visited those main breaks. The pictures
Well,
were
it seems
so
like when there's a break in my neighborhood area, people have me on direct dial. So
I bet they
whatever
do.
time of the day. Yeah. So I go over there. But I really am encouraged about the early detection, and the more we utilize that, then we can let the neighbors know ahead of time before they try to get a glass of water and don't. And plus, we can hopefully keep our workers, prevent our workers from having to go out in the middle of the night when it's so hot or so cold. If we can be, I think everybody just would appreciate somehow knowing that this is going to happen and we're going to deal with it.
Yep, I agree. Can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you.
With 550-ish breaks a year, that's a lot of disruption, and the social costs are very high. We don't really calculate them like we could, but it's not just losing water, it's the disruptions to businesses and homes, and so we're going to keep after it, and it's, other than safety and everything else we do, it's job one. It needs attention. You hear me talk about it a lot. It's what keeps me up at night, one of the things. There's a few others. Anything else for the moment? All right. So,
Mark,
yes.
I would just, maybe an upcoming meeting, I don't expect you to have this today, but unless you were going to get to it in your presentation, but Maybe an upcoming meeting, you might brief us on any progress made on updating historical data in older parts of town, like the old market, regarding abandoned gas shutoffs, such as that, so that we avoid any future surprises.
I would, yeah, why don't we take that on as a separate topic?
I don't expect you today to be prepared for that.
But I could tell you at a high level, our GIS, our geographical information systems, are being updated every single day. We're trying to keep them as current as possible. But we've brought information forward over the last 5+ years to populate our databases in a stellar fashion. We have a better handle on information out in the field than we have. But I understand your question, and I think that would be a good topic to talk about separately.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, updating water treatment facilities. We continued several projects in that crown jewel Florence water treatment facility. We've invested about $13 million in capital improvement projects there. For the first time in the facility's 131-year history, 131-year history. I think it even predates Frank Frost, I think. That goes way back, right? We had a month-long plant shutdown to complete structural and gate improvements in Basin 2. Doesn't matter what the shutdown reason was, but to take that plant down for maintenance is a big deal. And without the Platte West Water Treatment Facility, you just wouldn't be able to do that. So employees finished a complete overhaul of the facility's electrical system, and our water construction crews replaced the 48-inch low service valves at the Florence River Station. The reason that's significant is they used a large crane to lift and place the equipment, and they had to really work hard to maneuver that thing in a tight space just yards away from the Missouri River. It's a scene, and it's impressive, and our crews do it best. There's no doubt about it, and this demonstrates that. As you may recall, our Platte South Water Treatment Facility received extensive damage from the 2019 flooding. Did you time that with me talking about a flood? Is that a duck? Yeah. And I'm talking about I get it. You're good. Right about as I came into this role, we had a little flood that hit us, and that was significant. So last year, contractors completed the well field repair and the cleanup. More than 65,000 tons of sand and vegetative debris were removed from the well field. Repairs to the flood damaged roads within the plant property should be completed very soon. Hats off to the water operations side, Mike Koenig, Doug Whitfield, and all of the employees that manage that with our contracted partners. It's back in shape, and it was no small task. I'm going to move on to a little bit about water technology. I won't talk as much about it because a lot of the things with leak detection and some of our new technologies, we're in our second or third year of exploiting those. But our engineering and construction teams conducted a pilot program for a process known as pipe bursting to increase efficiency when replacing a long run of pipe that have little horizontal or vertical deflection, so straight runs where you can run an auger through it and break the old pipe and pull a new pipe right through it. Less disruption. I watched it happen under L Street during rush hour traffic at about 64th from the north to the south. I stood there and watched it. Those cars went by, nobody knew what was going on. So our crews are going to be doing that. They're excited about it. They did a little bit of that earlier this week, I think. And I said, hey, I wouldn't mind coming to see, but I don't have much time. Well, they were done in a couple hours. So you can go through the same channel. Of course, you have to locate, but the locating is less risky when you're going through a channel that's already there. So this is supposed to be a point-in-time presentation, and that's the newer thing that we're moving forward with, and we're really excited about it. As we mentioned earlier, we teamed up with contractors to use robotic technology to assist with critical preventive maintenance efforts. We scanned nearly 5 miles of those concrete mains, and I mentioned what a win it was with the one on Harrison Street. That damage would have it's like, if it doesn't happen, you don't know how bad it would have been, and that's the great news. We also are being careful with concrete that we go under so we aren't destroying new concrete. We mentioned earlier a new hydraulic model. That brought online in 2020, and that's an exciting integration into our GIS, or Geographical Information System. It'll serve as an important tool for all of us, especially engineering and water operations, to plan and execute the water master plan that we're developing. So, as I said, future pump stations and those things, they'll be, you almost can't be wrong now, but as we get better and we have less water main breaks, you need to be more surgical and more strategic about where we go. So we're standing here in a newly renovated facility, and by the end of last year, we completed the renovations of our new headquarters, and we weren't able to occupy or celebrate it. That's just kind of how it's been going in my first 3 years. Had a flood, had a pandemic, new facility. We view this as another important investment in infrastructure, and I think we can all agree it's not just a beautiful facility, but it'll serve our employees and customer owners well for years to come. We've added this boardroom at your direction, and we appreciate that for public meetings. And you've adapted so well during this pandemic through WebEx presentations and also as we kind of move back in a little bit. It's been great to have that flexibility with you, and we appreciate your support as we remain transparent and accessible for you to carry out the public's business. I want to talk a little bit about Construction Center 1. It comes up a lot. We know that that was disrupted through a neighboring project that we've talked about quite a bit. We formed a task force last year to actively manage that issue. We included regular inspections by a third-party structural engineer. Again, we appreciate our employees for being vigilant and cooperative and monitoring and reporting any damage they see. They're our first line of defense on most things, and this is no exception. This past April, as you know, you approved a 3-year lease for a facility near 142nd and C Circle. It's got adequate space. We've identified the employees that will work out of that facility, and we should have access to the building this month to begin improvements necessary, and we plan on moving employees into the facility hopefully by the end of August. It's important to note and reemphasize, as we said earlier, we're working very hard and diligently to recover incremental costs resulting from the damage to that construction center. As for the second construction center, that was kind of one of those things that happened in my first 3 years. All of a sudden, our building started settling. But for the second construction center, now that's good news. It's been a long time coming, and that facility that'll be off of State Street is moving forward. This is an extremely important business continuity facility, and it is an infrastructure improvement, just like fixing our water mains. If we were to have an issue, which we did, but it didn't take us down, it just disrupted us at our operations center and our construction center, we don't have a second facility, and we've talked about it a long time. In March, you approved the purchase of more than 56 acres near Blair Hyde Road and State Street for a site to be used for this. The conceptual design's been presented to the city planning. We're meeting, talking about zoning and all those things, and the design will start soon. We're going to develop a communication plan with the neighbors so we can inform them of what we're doing and proactively answer any questions they might have. We plan to finalize the design yet this year, construction next year. We hope to have the facility completed and ready for move-in by 2023, 2024. I want to thank you. This sounds like not much, but to support that, there'll come a day where we'll say, boy, I'm glad we had that. Not only will it help in the event of, let's say, the Papio floods. It'll never happen, I know. It floods, or a tornado comes through that. Anything you can imagine, and it won't be that, it'll be something else, this much I've learned. To have that other facility to operate out of is critical and paramount to the emergency response we provide. So thank you for that. But it's also critical and necessary in order to grow. And if we're going to grow and bring on more crews to get to 25 to 30 years of main repairs and replacements a year, we need to do that with our crews as much as we possibly can. I hope you agree, but that's the way I feel. And right now, facilities are a barrier. We're behind on these. We should have had a construction center long ago, but that's on me. I sat in your chair for a long time. So very exciting. Thank you for your support. We'll keep you updated. And I look forward to a dedication of that construction center to someday. I don't know if I'll be here or not, but I hope I am. So fiscal responsibility, I'm getting there, I promise. We had another great year of strong fiscal financial results in 2020. Our annual revenues of natural gas exceeded budget by 3.7%. Water sales totaled 31 billion gallons. You know, that's a lot of gallons, right? Really, the number doesn't matter, but that's the highest annual consumption since 2012. That year, we distributed 37.9 or almost 38 billion gallons, and if I'm not mistaken, that was a drought year. It was 2012. In October, Moody's Investor Service reviewed our gas and water department and affirmed our AA2 credit rating. And as you may recall, our S&P credit rating for this gas system is AA+. This is the highest credit rating of any municipal gas system. Hats off to the board for your support and trust, and to all the employees, and especially Joe Schaffert, Mark Myers, and their teams. That would include Geneva, and I'll go on, and when I start mentioning names, it's just not good to do. But we've paid very close attention to this, and we have the luxury of your support on this and your confidence. So, affordability. To measure affordability, we compare ourselves to approximately 40 other utilities, including in the annual Memphis Gas, Light, and Water Survey. Our gas rates remain well below the national Midwestern averages, ranking second lowest in 2021. Our water rates trend mid-range nationally and regionally, ranking 14th. But we don't know in that list who's funding infrastructure replacement or not, and I'm sure some of them aren't. So to be 14th and also have a plan to be replacing or rehabilitating infrastructure to the tune of 25 to 30 miles yet this decade is really good. There'll come a time where that will organically drop because of that. I'm positive of that. So that's something to be very proud of. The district's long-term natural gas transportation contract with Northern Natural Gas, which extends through 2036, saved our customer owners $8 million as compared to the published tariff rate in 2020. Natural gas prepay contracts, CPEP, Central Plains Energy Project, and 3 other entities saved our customers $7.8 million just in 2020 alone. Those prepay contracts have saved our customers $94 million since 2007. We do have an advantage in the way we buy gas, and hats off to Jim Knight and his team for staying focused on that and making sure that I understand this. They've done a good job of that. So we remain committed to the promises to our employees to properly fund our pension and other post-employment benefits known as Opeb, which is retiree medical mainly. These are trust funds. Both of those trust funds performed well in 2020. We exited the year with the pension having assets of $513.6 million and an actuarial funded ratio of 94%. It's just, again, your support. We couldn't do it without you, but hats off to the entire team for doing a couple things. We changed the way we handle those investments, and we changed our fund managers. There's a lot that goes into this. You always support us on our contributions to match the employees and never take them for granted. Now, the Opeb Trust Fund is another success story. That had assets of $60.3 million exiting the year and a funded ratio of 39%. But keep in mind, in 2016, we had no assets and a funded ratio of 0%. It was pay as you go. And I know you've been very involved in this, Director McGowan, and other board members that aren't here anymore, but the employees, on behalf of the employees, thank you for funding those post-employment benefits. We're on our way to building a rock-solid, sustainable trust fund and a percentage that is second to none. So we thank you for that, because those benefits are not common. Very much appreciated. So even as the pandemic took center stage throughout last year, we remained focused on raising our profile within the community and among our employees. We launched a refreshed utility assistance program, and we renamed it the Home Fund. It provides assistance by connecting customers in need in the community. More than $240,000 was distributed to our customers suffering severe financial hardships. In March, thank you, Director Cook, we co-hosted and chaired the 14th annual Heat the Streets Run and Walk for Warmth. Was it nice that day? I think it was, wasn't it? It was part virtual, I remember, but that raised $103,000 for our customers in need of assistance. Over the life of that event, though, it's been almost $1.5 million that have raised just through that event that goes directly back to our customers in need. We also support the community through our annual giving drive. Current and retired employees donated $90,000, which was split between the Home Fund and the United Way. We did give our employees the choice on that. And in an effort to be a better neighbor and more integrated with our communities, we added the Nextdoor app to the list of our social media platforms. We now have the potential to almost in real time reach more than 225,000 residents in 710 neighborhoods. As we work our way into this and make sure that we're good neighbors in the Nextdoor app, we can connect to share outage information, road closures, community events, and more in a strategic way. But we can also intervene if we need to on conversations about M.U.D. Often you'll see people talking about their utility or something, and our employees have been really good about saying, hey, did you see this? And it gives us ability to really talk in real time. So hats off to Stephanie and Tracy for getting that going. We've been talking about it for a long time, but unless you were law enforcement or city government, you're not allowed to post into, and they've opened it up to utilities now. So it's really going to be a great tool. So, and also as an extension of our on tap, we branded our water a few years back. We are working on a rebranding effort, and we've walked the board through that, and there'll be more to come on that. So employee communication is a key aspect of an engaged and informed workforce, and we're continuing to require regular one-on-one meetings for managers and their direct reports, and also at some frequency meetings with your once removed. This is really starting to pay off, because I used to hear, I'm not saying I used to hear, I'm going to generalize, but when I would talk to employees, which I often do, they might say, well, my manager's really busy and we just never talk. That doesn't happen anymore. So when the conversations, I can't say how good the conversations have to be, but when people talk, problems get solved, in my opinion. You find out a lot of things. And if you're just talking about your families and getting to know each other a little bit, that's great too. So that's been really good. And the HR department under Bonnie's direction has led that, and that's been a really good thing. Okay, we also implemented a few all-employee surveys to solicit feedback on communication preferences. We've done follow-up surveys. We refreshed our intranet with COVID-19 response protocols. And we've had a lot of interactive chat with the president. I've probably have met with a lot of employees on a more frequent basis because of this. There's no excuse for not setting up an interactive virtual link and talking to people. We probably averaged about 100 employees on most of those virtual meetings, and we pre-survey to ask about any questions they might have, and we take questions during it. It's been a really good thing. I probably learn more from it than the employees do, so I've appreciated their attendance. As far as diversity, equity, and inclusion, our human resources group is working with us as the senior team to enhance and redevelop a program dedicated to D&I. We have a ways to go. There's no doubt about that. We did send out a diversity and inclusion statement that we created, and we shared it with all our employees, and it reads as follows. M.U.D. is committed to employing a diverse workforce that reflects the community that we serve and that is inclusive of and respects employees' individual differences. We value and embrace an employee's need to bring their authentic self to work. We've had some focus groups with a cross-section of employees where we're talking to some subject matter experts outside of the district. But really, it starts with every one of us, and especially me. And I recognize that we have a ways to go in providing opportunities for everyone, regardless of diversity and you know, who we are. One of the things that I feel that will be important is we have some professional development, but traditionally here it's only been for the engineering group. And that doesn't promote opportunity. And it's not their fault, that's just how it's always been. We need to provide professional development to all our employees so they can rotate through areas and have better opportunities and know what jobs are there, and we've got a good start on that. And also in our hiring practices, I think it's not a given that a slot in this company belongs to someone years ahead of time. That's counter opportunity, and I'm just going to say I can only show you through my actions. But I'm also happy to report that one of the attributes that Ms. Langle brings to us is her experience with OPPD. Tim Burke, I think, has been an absolute leader on this topic, and not just superficial, an absolute leader. And I've talked with Tim a lot, and some of the things they've done at OPPD, I wish I would have done, but it's never too late. So we'll be looking to Gina to work with Bonnie and the entire team to help us understand what the outcomes of those were and what would work here at M.U.D. You didn't know I was going to carry your resume up, but we had some long discussions about this, and I'm really encouraged. I'm also encouraged that the relationship with OPPD is going to be more important going forward than it ever has been, with natural gas and electricity not being able to be separate, so I'm encouraged with that too. We're going to open up a new intranet page on D&I. We're going to add a diversity calendar. We're going to continue to develop a roadmap to launch D&I initiatives. These are just tactical things. I just want you to know it's at the top of my mind, and next year I'll have a better report for you. So I also want to, Corey still in the room? Compliment Corey for his 10 years of interim. So, you know, Corey and I have had some really nice talks, and when he agreed to be interim, I said, you know, I did this once. Director Kavanaugh said, would you be interim? But you can't apply. I said, okay, I'll do that. Do you remember that? Okay. And that turned out to be about 7 months, maybe more. And it was a great experience, but it's fraught with both risk and opportunity. And how do you do this? You know, do you go out on a limb? Do you play it safe? Because for me, I knew I would be working for my future boss. And maybe Corey wasn't in this case, but hats off to Corey for handling that. And the next time somebody gets asked to be interim, you need to go talk to him and tell them the pros and cons, but there's really no book on this. So thank you for doing that for us. Yep. I enjoy working with Corey and the entire engineering and construction group, and he's been a really good leader here, and he's been here a long time. Okay, so succession planning. We've got to pay attention to our workforce. We've got a lot of retirements that happen, and we have a lot of retirements coming. We're closely managing headcount. We're paying attention to retirements. We're trying to predict who may or may not, just because it's better to know than not know, so we can hire ahead and fill those roles before someone leaves. So HR distributes what's called a separation map on a quarterly basis, and it frankly says, you know, Mark's been here X years, he's vested or not vested, and maybe he's got kids in college. So we just try to, and this is good information for your one-on-ones. I still think when you talk to somebody, you might avoid a surprise of somebody coming in and, you know, tomorrow morning and saying, I quit or I retired. So that's been a really good tool, and it's getting better all the time. And in light of the number of employees that are eligible for retirement on that separation model, it's critical that we remain the employer of choice and we continue to attract talented candidates. This building is, we may not be able to pay like some of the Fortune 500 engineering firms, but when an engineer walks through the door here and goes upstairs and Corey takes them around and shows them the optimized, effective workspace that they're going to get to work in and the kind of projects we do, I think we can mitigate that. I think it's a modern facility that will attract and help retain talent in the future. Not just engineering, but their work is special. They have large plotters and they need a lot of room. So it's really been a good thing. As you know, we have a selection of a COO candidate. Our CIO selection process has begun. We've received a lot of applications, and we're working through that. I don't know if it'll be August or September, but we're working through it as we speak. And I just want to thank you all for your ongoing support, confidence, and I'd be happy to entertain questions, and that went a really long time. There's a lot to cover. Yes?
I'm sure you mentioned this, but I didn't catch it. Review the percent that were funded for the retirement. I know it's a good number.
It was at 94%? Is that what it said? Yeah, that keeps us from having to make a trip down the road to, yeah. But what it really does is it lets our employees know that they can be confident that your support is there to keep that fund solid for the rest of their retired lives and their families' lives. So,
I think it's really
yes.
critical. And
Yep.
I'm very happy that it's doing so well.
Very proud of that.
On committee.
Great report, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Begley.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you, you've provided great stewardship in the last 16 months, which is not something anybody could plan or wish for, and the stars shine the brightest during the darkest part of the journey, and you're a star.
Well, I'm humbled. Thank you for saying that. We have a lot of work to do, but I appreciate your confidence and your compliments. Thank you. It's mostly I'm looking for confidence, and if that's what it sounds like, I'm good with that. Thank you, Director Kavanaugh.
Mark, I appreciate this report. I always look forward to this state of the district, because it's obvious you put a lot of time and thought into it. And it's always pleasing, and you look back and look at all we've accomplished as a company, and we've done a lot. But the other thing I think is great about you is you have a vision where you want to go in the future and what we have to do to keep improving. So, great report. It's a good pat on the back for all employees. They've done a great job. Tough last year, like Tim said, it was a tough year. But look at all we did. Look at all we got done and what we served. It was remarkable, and I just want to say thank you to you and your team and the employees for the hard work.
We appreciate your comments.
I would second that too, both my duck and myself.
That was so well timed. I am almost thinking it was on purpose, but yeah.
I have a question. I have a comment.
I wanted to do one thing while I got all the credit for preparing this. I want to thank Stephanie and her team, Tracy, Jessica, Jay, Wes, everyone. See when I start naming names? It's so, I worry about this, of course, and the last week it's on my mind a little bit. But when I get the first draft without even touching it, it's just stellar, and that's really appreciated. I call it a layup, but I still got to go shoot the layup. Sometimes I miss, so thank you for that. Director Cook.
Thank you very much for your report. We had a pandemic, you had a flood, you had construction damage. We also had civil unrest.
Yes.
And it's yet to really be addressed kind of anywhere in a strategic way. We've done, I think probably, I don't know, maybe since the 60s or 70s, done recognitions and things that I would view as more promotional in nature. But the level of, for diversity and inclusion, not to be an initiative, not to be something you do out of obligation, but not to be an add-on, or if we have leftover money or leftover time, But to have an attitude and an approach and a culture that is just as forward-thinking as the physical infrastructure. I mean, we did things today that look into the future in terms of how buildings are designed, how pipes are designed, and when you got to the diversity and inclusion, it was clear that that still doesn't exist in this organization. So, ways to go. We have a ways to go. I think maybe 30 years ago, people would be, yeah, we have a ways to go. But I look at this room. I'm not certain what your DNA breakdown is. I'm looking around, I appear to be the only person with ancestors from the African continent. I've got Irish too, but I think it's ridiculous, and you can point to the money's always good, being excellent. We're excellent fiscal stewards. We are forward thinking in terms of how our customer owners are, whether they're inconvenienced or they lose money in their business. But I want to reemphasize that you would have to be blind, deaf, cognitively impaired not to recognize the importance of what we saw, not just in a flood, not just in an invisible or microscopic virus, but in the civil unrest that still exists, and it's not really being addressed. Well, this is my job now, so that's one thing for it to be, to reach barriers, political barriers, and for that process to take its turn. But it is important for us to apply as much energy, not simply to outreach, not simply to education, but to recognizing that it's just as important as the pipes that we buy, having that, being able to make decisions in that area. So, thank you.
Your points are well taken. That's why I didn't just want to rattle through, and I used the word tactical, and yes, your points are well taken, and I look forward to working with you to help me.
Absolutely. And here's the thing also that we learned in the last year and a half. It's not just always up to Tanya.
No, I understand, right?
I'm
I agree.
56 and a half. I'll be 57 in November. I'm happy about it. I feel like I got good genes on the outside. It shouldn't just be who Tanya knows and what Tanya knows. Why isn't it everyone's responsibility? It's everyone's responsibility to ensure that this is a well-run organization in every other way. And I'm rejecting that notion that it's all on Tanya to know everybody. This is a city, certainly a segregated city, but this is a city with lots and lots of people from all over the world, and people who have lived in this city and in this state their whole lives. We're going like the second and third generation, but somehow folks just don't seem to make it through these unpublished routes to employment, particularly in leadership or in management. So it cannot just be on Tanya. This comes up over and over again on other volunteer boards. The expectation is they bring Tanya on, or one person of color on, or one woman on, and then they're supposed to know everybody and use all their free time courting and nurturing relationships on behalf of that institution. And we all live here, we all benefit from living in community. So we all need to invest in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude the committee?
I think it does. Do any board members have any further comments?
Really quickly, Mr. Chairman, when Personnel Committee met last week, we discussed a number of different items, including the new COO, and we also broached the topic of senior VP salaries and internal equity, market equity. So I know Bonnie Savine was going to take a look at that this month and perhaps present something to the board next month. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that.
Thank you, Jim. And Jim, I know you've got to run by 10:15 or so.
Yes.
We'll take a break, and how about we move agenda item number 12, the president's salary, do that the very first item, so then you can skip out if you want?
That'd be great, Mr. Chair. And also perhaps item 2 under personnel as well, with the new COO as well?
Yes. Yeah, we'll do those first.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? I'd like to mention that due to COVID-related precautions, members of the public have access to the meeting via a WebEx connection that is set up in an adjacent conference room at the headquarters building here. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? And if so, please indicate your intentions to the moderator.
Director McGowan, we don't have any public in.
Okay, thank you. The committee meetings have now concluded. It is 10:05. We will reconvene for Jim in 7 minutes at 10:12. Could we start up the meeting? I would like now to call the meeting to order. I'm Mike McGowan, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Utility District's Board of Directors. I'd like to welcome you all to the regular board meeting this morning, July 7th, 2021. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at M.U.D headquarters, located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website after the meeting's conclusion. I would like to announce that for all attendees at today's meeting who are not fully vaccinated, the district is continuing to follow the CDC's guideline for choosing safer activities by requiring masks or 6-foot social distancing. Thank you for your cooperation. Mary, could we have roll call, please?
Bagley?
Here.
Cook?
Here.
Friend? Frost?
Here.
McGowan?
Here.
Howard?
Here.
Kavanaugh?
Here.
Item number 2, Open Meetings Act. I'd like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available in the back of the room, and a copy is also available in nearby conference room set aside for members of the public who may attend. And now, for those who wish to participate, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In order to expedite this, or move along, Mr. Bagley has an outside commitment at 10:30, and I told him we would move agenda items 9 and 12 to the front of the agenda. So, Mr. Bagley, if you could take item number 9.
Appreciate your accommodations, Mr. Chairman. For item, I'll go item 9, 10, and 12? Or just 10 and 13, I'm sorry. For item 10, I move that we approve the selection of Gina Langle as the Senior Vice President and Chief Operations Officer for M.U.D.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
For item 13, the President's Performance and Salary Review. The Personnel Committee met last week, and the Personnel Committee is recommending, and I'm moving for approval for President Mark Doyle, a 2.25% annual increase and a 5% progression increase, with these retroactive to March 1st, 2021, in consultation with Vice President of HR, Bonnie Savine's recommendation. I move for approval.
Second.
Discussion, I'd like to say the 2.5%, I believe that's the same that the union employees got.
Yes.
And the 5% is what every employee gets until they get up to the maximum.
Correct.
So, okay. Any other discussion?
Just reiterate what we said during the committee meetings. I don't know if any more needs to be said at this point, but we're very pleased with the performance of our president, and I think this will reflect that.
I agree. We are pleased with Mark's performance, and I think his two greatest strengths are his planning and strategic vision, and we appreciate that. Okay. Roll call?
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Do you have one more, Jim? Number wage and salary increases?
I move for approval of the memo provided by Bonnie Savine and discussed in committee.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, get back on the regular agenda items. Agenda item number 4, approval of minutes for the committee meetings and regular monthly board meetings for June 2nd, 2021.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Bagley? Cook?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Agenda number 5, Director Frost, capital expenditures.
Capital expenditures, I move we approve the capital expenditures as presented by Mr. O'Brien on the committee meetings and as outlined in his letter dated June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Cook,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Okay, item agenda 6, acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates. I move we approve the acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates
Second.
as presented by Mrs. Hen at the committee meetings and as outlined in her letter dated June the 30th, 2021.
Still second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Cook,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Item 7, I move we approve the bids on materials and contracts as presented by Mr. Zellers at the committee meetings and is outlined in a letter from the Director of Procurement, Sherry Meisinger, dated July 1, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Cook,
Yes.
Frost,
Aye.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Tim, are you taking Director Francis?
Main extensions. This was presented during committee by Corey O'Brien, and I recommend approval of each one of the water and gas main extensions.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Cook,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Okay, we've covered number 9, 10, and 11, and 13. I think now, if I haven't missed anything, we've changed things around. I think we're ready for a motion to close. Oh, I'm sorry, I got it. Yep, I'd like to mention that due to COVID, members of the public have access to the meeting via WebEx connection that is set up in a conference room adjacent to the boardroom at the headquarters. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board?
No members of the public present, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Cook,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes,
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
we are adjourned. Thank you.